group is going to talk about put data where your staff is. This is Andrew Fuerste-Henry and Nick Clemens.
Hello.
Hello.
This thing. Could that say where your staff are? Would that be grammatically correct?
Where your staffs are.
Moving on. I'm Andrew. This is Nick.
Can I add the watch?
We've got Barbara Gordon. She's a librarian. Not anymore. I mean, she's sometimes a librarian.
No, she mentioned it's just horrible.
Well, but like, the new 52 happened, and who's the one in the purple? Oh. In the purple. In the
Purple tie.
Oh, that's it. So I'm here as a librarian who doesn't really know how jQuery works, but keeps using it to make changes to my staff site. I want to talk to you about how that's been going. Nick's here because he does know how jQuery works.
I was instructed to stand here and eat candy until he got a question he couldn't answer. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Or I say something flat wrong. Like, and both of those things are going to happen. So here we go. What is a J and why should I query it? So very brief summary of how websites work. HTML makes it exist. CSS styles it. And then if you want to do like fancy things, you use jQuery. I forgot I put that joke there. jQuery is very powerful and good at many things. Yeah. So like hiding and transforming words. You probably, most of you have jQuery on your Koha site right now, relabeling at least one field in the patron record. So like our B sort one field doesn't say sort one on it, it says service area. And that's jQuery finding places on web pages that say sort one and making them say service area instead. And that's some pretty easy just substitution. jQuery is great at controlling data entry and formatting. So for example, on our patron record, when you go to put in the SMS alert number, that needs to be formatted just so for Twilio. It needs to have a plus and a 1 at the front. So jQuery on that form forces it to always have a plus and a 1 and stops you from putting in letters or dashes or things that'll make it break. Both of those two examples I've given, I'm 99% certain are already on that jQuery community library page, or close variations thereof. You can use jQuery to insert HTML or content into a page. That's a lot of the jQuery that I have used or seen. It's just I wish this page said a little something more. Let me stick some words in there. And then finally, anything conditional. If you're thinking, I want this page to do X when Y happens or Y is true, as soon as you have an if in there somewhere. You can't really, well, I don't know, I can't do that with HTML or CSS, or then you have to break out the jQuery and start playing with stuff. But is jQuery bad for things? Yes, jQuery is very bad for things. Make those comments. Okay. Stability. Things you build in jQuery are very likely to break. Like most of the jQuery you're going to put on your Koha site is looking for something on the page. Like blanked on what we were looking at earlier. We were looking for the login branch code that was labeled just so as a class. Where'd it go? Yeah,
Used to be a class.
Yeah, it didn't used to be a class.
Used to be an ID.
Has anything changed in the Koha staff interface recently? Yes, many things. How many of you had jQuery break in this big staff interface overhaul? And that's, how would it not? The page changed, a bunch of the things are labeled differently, and jQuery is looking for everything in its old address, its old name, and stuff is not there anymore. That's not awful if your jQuery is not 100% mission critical to your library, which is a really good reason for your jQuery not to be 100% mission critical to your library, and we'll sort of circle back to that a few times, I think. jQuery is not good at security. Oh, Christopher was talking about, I don't know, the day is a mess. We were talking earlier today about using pages to let people see a report, but not all the reports. We have a few volunteers at my library that all share one volunteer login with very limited permissions, and we one day needed them to run a report. We didn't want to run all the reports, so we used jQuery to hide the run button on every report except for number 5, 10. That works, sort of. It makes the button not show up when the page loads, but if you know how to inspect the page and find the element that's still there in the page, it can just be shown, or you can just edit the URL of the report to make it point at the report you no longer have a button for. Like, there are a lot of ways to get that data, even though the button's gone. But that was enough for our purposes. I know that Paula, the retired librarian volunteer who was running the report, she's not gonna figure out how to do any of that. And I trust her, I just wanted to make it a little harder. Well, that is not real security, and jQuery is just not gonna accomplish real security flat out. And then finally, yeah, jQuery is not good for social cohesion, which is overstated, but fundamentally true. If I make something really awesome in my Koha out of jQuery, none of you get to play with it. And moreover, if I use jQuery to make my Koha look really weird, I'm going to have a hard time talking to any of you about how Koha works. If I'm trying to say, well, you just go to the trying to make up hypothetical bad ideas on the fly here. I don't know. If I've moved all the buttons and renamed all the modules, that's become a me problem really quickly. So jQuery gives us a great power, which we must use with great responsibility, I guess. Before I get into some specifics, where does jQuery go? It goes into these system preferences. I can't think of anywhere else you would squeeze jQuery into your Koha, probably somewhere. So you've got 4 system preferences just based on where you want that JavaScript to be applied, into the self-check-in or the self-checkout or the OPAC or the intranet user.js. I love a good system preference search that will bring you up a group of all your system preferences, and as a bonus gets you a funny word. So Serge, this is Serge Gainsbourg, French pop star, and he will find all of the jQuery system preferences for you. So some examples. This is the overdue notice and status triggers in Koha. My library sends a first overdue and a second overdue, but not a third overdue, because the third overdue was going to be the thing that tells you your things are about to go lost and you're about to get billed. And they didn't want to do that. But I'm really used to the third overdue being set up here, and I kept coming back to this page and being confused and thinking, man, how do we make those notices again? So I made the stupidest jQuery in the world to put these words here to remind me, and only me, because I'm the only person who goes to this website. It's not here. Go somewhere else. This is maybe like my perfect jQuery deployment. because if it breaks, who cares? It's helping me, it's telling me what I want to know, but it's pretty stable. It's really not dangerous. I can't think how this is gonna blow up my koha. Going back to the lack of stability, I did actually have to edit this because circumstances changed, but that's good news because now this says long overdue notices are just a page in Koha where you go and you control P the page instead of mail merging. And I'm so happy about it. That's a whole other thing that wasn't in place when it was time to submit presentation proposals.
Can I say,
Yeah.
just 1 second? Andrew did say that this is very safe and it cannot break your system, but just be aware. If you have bad JavaScript, like if your JavaScript won't compile, it will not only break your custom jQuery or JavaScript, I should say, it will break all of Koha's JavaScript.
Yeah, that's fair.
So if you do something like this, and you forget the semicolon and you suddenly find that everything in Koha looks wrong, maybe try removing your JS and seeing if that brings it back.
I don't know if a lot of multi-branch systems use JavaScript to change the color of the bar at the top of the page based on which branch you're in. I love that because when I make an edit to the JavaScript and it all breaks, that's my like first, oh, the bar went green. I've done something wrong. Okay, so this is the script that makes that. It's not very complicated, but it's JavaScript, so none of it makes sense. I just hate the grammar of it. All the words are in the wrong order. I don't get it. Why do you put so many things in parentheses? Why do you start with the parenthesis in quotation mark? I hate it. I hate it all. But
It works.
yeah,
It's
And-
magical.
yeah, I guess, but not good magic. Some weird,
Voodoo.
Black man did it. What's with the sad wiki face?
the sad way. Oh, there. Like jQuery is so sad. To run through what I'm doing here, I'm pre-pending this HTML. So stick this HTML into the page. And that's just HTML. It says words and makes them big. Specifically put them into the class named third panel ID. Yeah, thank you. One of them's a class, one of them's an ID. I never remember which. The number of times I Googled, do I do the hash sign or the period here? I don't know. So if there is an ID on your page called third panel, or I guess really whenever you see an ID called third panel, stick those words in there. That would probably be fine. There are probably not a lot of places in Koha with the ID third panel. It's probably just that third overdue place. Yeah, but that's like such a big probably, and actually, I don't know. What would happen if I gave a really, really common ID and prepended this to like 1,000 places on every page in Koha? I don't think it would break everything, but it would be cool. So we wrapped the whole thing here in if tools overdue rules length, which just basically means if you are on the part of tools where the overdue rules live, every page in Koha, every module has, I'm sure there are exceptions, but most of them have an ID that is basically just this page. So however many secret third panels there are in the world, I'm not putting these words on all of them. I'm only putting these words on the third panel in the overdue tools. Side note. So this is just copied straight out of my internet user JS system preference where I have labeled everything with this is what it does. This is where that code ends. There are things in there that are not labeled. Every once in a while, I have a bad day and I'm lazy, and then sometime later I have to go back and clean it up, but strongly encouraged. Labeling is good. There are a bunch of ways to see this not formatted very well. So the obvious comments can help you spot where, yeah, if you like lose all your line breaks or something, yeah, can help you a lot. But yeah, just as you're scrolling through, I like to be able to control F. I like knowing what it all is, especially because, as I've said, I don't read this very well. If it's not labeled, I'll get confused. Oh, I forgot I did this too. Dang, guys. All right, so to figure out how to tell it where I wanted this to live, I just right-clicked vaguely where I wanted the text to be and inspected it. Found, yep, so way at the top of all of my console here, my inspection. I've got the ID for the whole page. And this is the part that, like, it's not too hard, I guess, to dig around in this and figure out the ID of the part you're curious about. It's not the world's easiest thing. It's like not a task I'm gonna give to my dad, but either of my brothers would figure it out. Anyway.
Which library tasks would you give to your patient?
Quite a few. He'd be a great board member. Okay, that might be insulting, actually. My father and library boards. All right, next example. This is my cat,
Not your dad.
not my dad.
What would you give him to?
Nothing. All right. Magnus is in the temporary patron category. So this is what he would look like normal out of the box Koha, but this is what I've done with jQuery so that when you pull up a patron who is in the temporary patron category, Koha makes it really stupidly obvious that this patron is following different rules than everybody else. It even tells you what those rules are right there. Yeah. I don't love this as much as the jQuery before. Because it's more complicated and it's gonna break and it really, like, it just should all be less fussy than it is. It works really nicely. But someday our circ rules are gonna change or our patron categories are gonna change and I'm gonna have to edit all this junk.
Oh, we have
Yeah, really, unfortunately, someday I'm gonna fall in the river and then ByWater is gonna get tickets saying, could you please change this thing that Andrew wrote? Okay, here's the code that makes this. It's probably real weird. I've probably done many things wrong and bad here. I don't know. So I've actually got several sets of these in our jQuery for each of our different, like, types of weird restricted patrons. We're a pretty small library system. That's about, I think there are 4 different ways you can be a not regular patron. So there aren't a million of these, but for the different, like, sets of permissions, each one gets, so some ifs up front. Here's the IDs for the 2 pages in circulation where you see a patron record. The more member, that's patron details, and this is the checkout page. So if you're on either 2 of those, and the patron category is in there, and they are temp, then make it red, make the background a weird color, and put this little note in there. Like, if I wanted to make this something I like more, I guess I'd try to figure out how to write a report that would figure out circ rules and derive wording for that little note. So then if my circ rules change, this would update too, but, like, that pushes all of this so far into the realm of, I should be, like, filing a bug and hiring a web developer and doing this for real. If I care, I should be doing it for real. So, like, I like it. It works well. Yes, Steve has a question.
So back on the previous screen. Hello, this is Steve from Ocean State Library. So where it says patron category : contains temp. We're having an issue on our site right now, which I suspect is related to the contains part of that. And I'm wondering if there's another, whatever that is, function, something that is equals exactly or something like that.
You could say equals. My memory is that this said equals at one point and we switched it to contains because the page gives the category code twice. I think, but that's a hazy memory of, like, Once upon a time, I was bashing away at this, trying to make it work, and this is what worked.
Thank you for
You. But yeah, I'm absolutely certain I could have just said equals temp. And maybe that would work, or maybe I had a reason for doing it this way. It's lost to the sands of time. Next. This is jQuery. It shows you all of the days on which the library is going to be closed in the next 3 weeks. I think it's next 4 weeks. Anyway, and if that day falls such that due dates will be changed, it's in red. So Andrew Day was 3 weeks away from the date on which I made this slide. So anything checked out today was going to get an extra date. Here's the jQuery doing that. It gets more complicated because it's taking a report and rendering the output of that as a table. I really don't know how this works. I mean, like, kind of make a table, get it? And if there aren't any closures, you say no closures. Lucas made this do. I don't know.
Black magic.
Yeah. Oh, I thought I had one more slide, but I'm gonna like wave at this real quick. This is not jQuery. This is just news. I started to try to make this as a news item, and Lucas told me that was dumb and it should just be jQuery. I think he used different words.
I don't think he knows those words.
Yeah, I don't think Lucas has ever called me dumb. Or even said I was doing something dumb. All right, this is my favorite one. This is the cat that reminds staff it's time to pull old books. So for the last few days of the month and the first few days of the next month, when staff are supposed to go through the new books and pull off the things that aren't new enough anymore, the cat shows up to remind them to do this. Once upon a time, this was just a box of text. And then that wasn't shiny enough, so I made it bigger and gave it a red border. And I don't know, I don't remember all the steps between there and staff are able to upload a file to the Koha file uploads. And if they put it in the category cats and make it public, it goes into the database of cat photos. We've also got Koha's quote of the day feature that we weren't using that conveniently had a database of cute quotes about libraries. So every time the page loads, it picks a cat photo and slaps a quote about libraries on it and just makes a little meme. I don't know.
If you could really make it talk.
Probably some sort of screen reader.
Yeah.
This gets more complicated because it's doing more stuff. And probably if I just wanted it to be something that shows up at the end of the 1 month and the start of the next month and says, books, do the thing, that would be really easy. But once I was here, it's like, well, I may as well have it figure out what month you should be pulling from, because humans don't like to subtract 6. So let's make the computer do it. And then, yeah, the cat and everything. So this part gets kind of complicated, where it's really all boiling down to, I need to figure out what's 6 months ago. This report here is a report that selects a random cat out of the file uploads and generates the URL to see that picture. And then we've got 2 sections that if we are at the beginning of the month, we say it's time to pull books now. Thank you. And if we're at the end of the month, we say it's almost time to pull books. Get ready. So yeah, that one got kind of long. So my silly examples aside, final thoughts. Label your mess. that system preference is crazy long. And it gets longer every day. Save a copy outside Koha, somewhere. Your Koha database is getting backed up. The action logs are saving copies of what your internet user JS was all the time. There is no way to recover that in a way that looks as nice or is as easy as what's in your internet user JS right now. I don't know that there is a way to get a backup of your JavaScript that doesn't pull all the line breaks out of it. And like, that's fine. I could go through that all and figure out where the line breaks go and put them back in and make it readable again, but I really don't want to.
Use some JavaScript.
Yeah, right. There are ways to do it, but maybe I'll just save it up front. Perform periodic audits. My JavaScript is full of things that say like, this won't be needed after bug blah, blah, blah. And I've been trying to get good at every time we do a Koha upgrade, just run through the whole thing and like, does this still work? Is it still needed? Is it still a good idea? Was it ever a good idea? And finally, don't trust it too much because it will break. Again, going back to it, just should not be mission critical because it's not that secure or stable. And if it's that important, if any of the things you're building out of jQuery are really cool and helpful, they really should like go in Bugzilla at least. You should at least make a record there to say, I had a cool idea. This is roughly how it works. Maybe somebody who knows what they're doing could put it into Koha. I am about out of time. This is contact information. Ta-da.
So we have some online comments.
Yeah.
Heather Hernandez raised her eyebrows and laughed. So, that's important. David Nin said he is in the R camp. Kendall said technically JavaScript is what makes the website fly too close to the sun. jQuery is a nice JavaScript library for interacting with the DOM. And then Kendall says, but I digress. But then Kendall says you could do it without jQuery, but you would need to understand a lot more about JavaScript. David said the jQuery library just makes it easier. Not that I know JavaScript or jQuery at all.
That's another thing I forget all the time. jQuery is a square to JavaScript's rectangle. All jQuery is JavaScript, but not all JavaScript is jQuery. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Rebecca said, love the cat. David said neat. Heather said, I want a database of cat photos. So Heather said, I need the t-shirt to wear to work that says books. Do the thing.
Sarah has a question back.
Sarah has a good question. So thinking about internal customer service, about how many of the respecting things that you do with JavaScript are requested by your staff, and how many are you dreaming it up because it helps you, and or dreaming it up because you have a feeling you're gonna want it? I guess I give you 3 categories.
Yeah. The good ones are driven by staff. Like the JavaScript that makes it so when you scan a barcode and it takes you to a bib record, the specific item you've scanned is highlighted in the holdings. That's one that staff asked for and it was like a great idea I never would have come up with, and like it's really cool. I would like to think that they are the ones that I make myself are driven by carefully observing staff and intuiting what they might want in a given situation. Because like I'm an assistant director and that's my role, but I don't know. Some of them are just me amusing myself.
How much of your cool or not cool stuff is actually on the jQuery library?
Very little. And I should post up there. It gets quickly to feel really idiosyncratic or like hyper local. And that's not true of all of those things.
I have a question then. So highlighting the barcode after you scan it, can you put that?
Yeah.
In the jQuery wiki? And I just wanted to add, that was a great job, Nick.
I had to make sure we didn't lose like see. Can you also file a bug for that one about highlighting the item if you didn't already? No, sure.
I just have an example of something like that can go wrong, maybe as an example, when we migrated, some of our library staff. Wanted the checkouts to all always load after each scan. So they asked, can you do that? And yeah, we can do it with jQuery. And so, the checkbox was checked with jQuery. And then, it was loading all the items and that was causing slowness. So then they were complaining about slowness because it's loading after every scan. And then I was telling them, just, do you have the checkbox? Just uncheck the box and you'll be all set. But then the code was checking the box after every scan. So it's just like an example of like the disastrous kind of, if you're not thinking about the side effects.
Yeah,
can go
What?
wrong.
and that could be really easily hidden. Yeah, like
And I'm like, what do you mean? Just uncheck the box and do it again. But we eventually found out that you couldn't uncheck the box.
I should add. I'm under the same name on the Koha community Slack, so by all means, find me there too. Well, we're over time. Goodbye.